Guys, my name is Jackie Caratini. I'm the Family Living Agent with the UW Extension Office here in Wood County. And we're going to talk about budgeting. Woohoo! How many of you are really excited about budgeting? Yep, that's usually what I get. Usually I get one person like from the finance office that goes, yeah! And then I say at home budgeting and they go, oh, no, not really. So that's kind of why we talk about this. The idea is generally, most of us know it, so you're probably not going to get a lot of really new tools today because most of it is stuff that you've heard before, but a lot of it is, there's a lot of other things that go into it, and we'll kind of talk about that. There is things that we learned as children, there's behaviors, there's emotions, there's lots of other stuff that goes into it, that's why we do and don't do it, why we don't follow it. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and hopefully we'll give you some tools. And then as part of the wellness series, we're going to keep coming back, but there's a space between this one and our next one. And the reason we did that is this first one is really important, and we actually want you to track your spending. So we're going to give you the tools today to build a budget, and then we're actually going to give you some tools to track your spending. And then I actually want to give you some time to come back and track your spending before you come back for the next one. And then we'll kind of go from there and we'll see where everybody's at. So that's where we're gonna go. So this summer, I don't know if you guys participated or not, but we actually did a county survey of all of employees. It was optional, you could participate or not, and just kind of, it was a financial capability, just kind of to see where everybody was at. And that actually mimicked a state of Wisconsin survey, which actually mimicked this. And this was a national survey from FINRA, and it was done in 2015, so ours was a little newer than that. But the interesting piece is that the results from Wood County actually were very similar to that of the national survey that came out and said that, and it was interesting, in Wood County, almost 100%, it was like 98% of those who responded said that they were saving every month for retirement, okay? So almost 100% said they're saving for retirement. But when it came to asking if you had an emergency savings, the national average is 51% they don't said. And Wood County was actually a lot lower than that. So it was crazy that, yes, we're almost all 100% saving for retirement, but emergency savings, nope, not doing it. So somehow we have this discrepancy between, and it could be how we worded the question, or it could be, what is emergency savings? Like, how do we define that, and how much do you really have set aside? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Nationally, 28% only are putting the minimum on their credit cards. So when they tell you, you know, out of that $700 balance, only $25 is due every month, that's all people are paying. 21% on medical bills. We know that that's a national issue, and that's been very political lately with our elections. We are honing in on that medical debt. That's really a big issue. And then exceeding their expenses, and then again, not even breaking even. So this is kind of what we're building off of, and this is why we're talking about it. So it's one of those things that, you know, you don't necessarily, again, not have to have the bills, or a lot of times, I used to do a lot of financial coaching or counseling with those that were being referred by other agencies. And so these are people that are unemployed, and it's like, nope, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about folks that have really good income, but there's still a big discrepancy about what are we even saving for, and are we meeting our goals? So that brings us to this. So increasing financial security is not just about financial literacy. So the idea is that you can have the information, you can know what you're supposed to do, but what else do you need? You need to have the means, you need to have the access, you need to have the what?
Motivation.
Yeah, the motivation, the will, the ambition, right? You gotta have that carrot. You gotta be able to actually do it. So one of my favorite things, so again, I give a little bit of my history, but I've been doing this just under 20 years. And when I would do my financial counseling, I would tell people, okay, before we sit down and do your budget, I need you to bring all the information you need to fill out your budget. And so I said, you know, if you have, you know, bills or anything, or paycheck stubs, whatever you have, you know, print something out, bring it with you so we can fill out your budget. And people would come, and this is no joke, and they would bring paper bags full, and they would set them on the table. And I'd be like, okay, what's this? It was unopened bills. It was bags and bags of unopened bills, because it had gotten to the point where they just didn't open them anymore. And if I didn't open it, I didn't see it, it wasn't there. And so there's this mindset of, yeah, I just don't even have to cope with it. So it's not that they didn't have the knowledge, it's not that they didn't have the skill, but they just didn't have the ambition or the motivation. So you gotta kind of have all of that put together to be able to actually take action. So, oh shoot. Okay. Well, that's okay. But this kind of goes into what the definition of financial well-being. Can you see it on your slide? Okay. And so sorry for those in Marshfield. The definition of what financial well-being is, but the idea is that we want you to be comfortable. You know, we want you to be able to live your life and live your life comfortably, to be able to do what you want and make those choices and to, you know, do the things that you want to do. That's that whole definition of financial well-being. You want to be able to do things as a family and as an individual comfortably and within your financial means. That's that whole definition. That's what it is. You shouldn't, you know, being scrimping and be tight and making these choices between one and the other. Then that's you're not there yet. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, these are really yucky. I don't know why this isn't working. Is it just
probably the projector?
Just our lovely projector. Yeah. Okay. So the first step in our whole process is, where do you want to go? Okay. So knowing what your goals are and where do you want to go. So always what you start off with is you have to know where you want to go. So did I skip something? Wrong order. So the idea is have to know where you want to go in order to get there. So if I asked you all, where do you see yourself in 20 years? I bet everybody can tell me. Do you have a goal of where you want to be in 20 years? You know, do you want to retire? Do you want to pay off your house? Do you want to send your kids to college? Do you want to pay off debt? Do you want to, you know, I bet everybody has something, okay? But here's the deal. If I asked you, what are you doing today to get to that goal? Can you tell me? Do you know what it is? Okay, so I see a lot of nodding heads. If it's retirement, yes. If it's not retirement, do you have an answer? Because again, I think everybody knows for retirement because I think our paychecks automatically take it out for us. But other than that, do we know, are we actively working towards it? So when it comes to goals, especially financial goals, there's generally 3 categories. So we have short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. And you know, our long-term goals are out there, but you also need the short-term and medium-term in order to get to the long-term goals. And I always tell people, we always kind of have those long-term ones, and they're pie in the sky and they're out there, but you have to have the short and the medium term to get there. Because if we don't have small successes with the short and the medium term, we're never going to get to the long term, because you're going to beat down with the day-to-day life, and you're never ever going to get there. Because we have kids, and water heaters break, and cars break down, and you're never ever right? You're never gonna get there. So you have to have the short-term stuff so that you have successes. So when you have short-term goals and you meet those goals, what happens? Hey, I got this, I can do this. And as soon as you have more and more of those goals, your self-confidence goes up and you realize, hey, I can do this. Next thing you know, you're paying off a $3,000, small loan, and then you realize, I can do this. I can pay off $50,000 in medical debt. You're getting to the big stuff, okay? But if we don't do the little stuff, we never get to the big stuff. So it's really, really important that in your mix of goals, you have short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. In your I see everybody's flipping it. One of the slides that I have in here that I didn't put in here is attitudes and beliefs. And one of the things I usually say, kind of talk to you about, is knowing where do your attitudes and beliefs about money come from. And this is one of those things that I want you to go home tonight and think about. And the question I usually ask you is that, when you think back to as a child, did you go to the bank? Did you go to the bank with your parents? Do you have memories of going to the bank? And is it the same as today? And who paid the bills in your house when you were a kid? Was it something you saw? Who pays the bills today? Where did your beliefs about money come from? Was it something that people talked about, or was it something that nobody ever said, nobody ever talked about? Kind of get to the bottom of that. And then where is it right now? Who pays the bills now? Is it something that you talk about as a couple, as a family? Is it something that you evenly discuss? Do you have separate checking accounts? Where are things? It's one of those, when we have couples, we usually recommend before you get married, I always say the first thing you should say on before you get to the third date is, what kind of spender are you? Because you need to know, are you the type of person that, I'm gonna have one. Are you the type of person that if you have a $20 bill that you play a game with yourself, that you're gonna try to make that $20 bill last as long as possible? I am gonna keep this as long as, I'm gonna be counting out pennies so that I don't have to cash this $20 bill. Like, I'll literally be standing in the line counting out pennies so that I don't have to cash this $20 bill. Or are you that type of person? Or are you the type of person that if I have cash, any kind of cash in my pocket, it is like gone. It is like gone. I don't even know where it went. I don't know what I spent it on, but it's just like gone, okay? Where do you fall? Are you somewhere in between? What kind of personality are you? Know your money personality. And then ask your spouse, like, what kind of personality are they? Because it's really important, because then you can compensate for that. And when it comes to your budget and when it comes to spending, you need to know what kind you are. Because if you're the kind of person that you can have a $20 bill and it's going to sit there, then yeah, it's okay to carry it with you. But if you're the type of person that has cash, then you need to put yourself on an allowance. I have, in today's day and age, I have a good friend, a very good friend of ours. Her and her husband are on a cash allowance. Every paycheck, they get so much cash, and when it is gone at the end of the week, and that is all they get till the next paycheck. And if he uses it all on going out to lunch with his father, then he's done. He just doesn't have any more. He doesn't have any gas money. He doesn't have any lunch money. That's it. That is just his allowance. That is it. He has to balance his money, and that is it. Because she knows that if she gives him more, it'll be gone. Because he just spends cash. He's the person that if he has cash, it's just gone. So they learned early on in their marriage that you get a cash allowance and it is yours to do with. I'm not gonna harp on you, but this is, and it works, and that's what works for them. So that's one of those things that you kind of just need to know. So that's kind of where those attitudes and beliefs come from. And sometimes we have to unpack that and think about where it came from before we can deal with it, and then before you can pass it on to your children, or you can think about where's my stuff coming from? And sometimes it's the opposite. So sometimes, your parents never did talk about money, and you got to be 18 and you're like, holy smokes, I don't know a daggone thing. So then you're like, we are not doing that in my household. We are having family meetings and we are talking about the budget and we are going to be very open and honest. You do the opposite. You do the exact opposite of what your parents did. Or you might do the same thing. But you have to unpack that a little bit and think about where that came from. Does that make sense? Okay. So I like to think about a budget as a financial roadmap. Okay, that's how I define what a budget, and I'm going to use the word budget or spending plan kind of simultaneously. It's a financial roadmap, okay? So you need to have it because you want to know where are you going, where do you want to go, where are you now, and then how are you going to get there, okay? That's what it's for. That's what it is. But here I'm going to tell you a little bitty secret, okay? So we're going to give you a sample, and then I'm also going to email you guys a much more detailed one later. But the idea is that piece of paper that you end up getting, it's not going to be any good. It's going to be a useless piece of paper unless you use it, okay? Have you heard the phrase, you get out of it what you put into it? Okay? Heard that? That's so true with a budget, okay? You get out of it what you put into it. It's only as good as what you make it, okay? So this is not something that you do one time and then you tuck it away on the shelf and you go, check, I did it, budget's done, ooh, I'm good to go. No, it's not how it works. So if you use it, it's a tool. If you use it and you put into it, it's a fantastic tool. It'll work great for you. You can keep going back to it and it'll be fantastic. It's a great tool. But it's not a one and done thing. It's not something that you just go, oh, yep, I did it 5 years ago, we're good to go. No, because what happens constantly? Things change. Not only in your life, stuff changes around you. How much has gas prices changed? Or grocery prices? Everything is changing constantly. So it's not a stagnant thing. So it's something that you have to keep up with and keep moving. So you can have your plan, and your plan can be the same. You can have the same goals, but it's gotta be a fluid thing. Does that make sense? Okay. So goals, it's that idea of what do you want to do, when you want to get there, and how much you need to get there. So let's take an example of, let's say, oh, is this on there? Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's say we have a teenager, sorry, in Marshfield. Teenager, and you want to buy that teenager a car, okay? And you know that within 2 years, 2020, we want to get the teen a car, okay? And let's say you make a deal. They come up with, part of it, and you have to come up with the other part of it. So you decide that within, by 2020, you're gonna have to come up with the car. So the idea is, goal is better car, what is needed by March 2020, $3,000, you get a decent, let's say they do 2, you do 3, so $5,000, you can get a decent little used car for a teen. So then divide it out by how many months you have, $83 a month, okay? The reason we do this and that we put all of those things on there is because here's the key part. I want you to ask yourself this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I that I can do this? Okay? If you are not at least an 8, go back to the drawing board. Okay? If you don't think I'm at least an 8 that I can set aside $83 a month, then say, nope. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to go, you know what? I don't think I can do 83. I feel better if it was, $70 a month. Then you can say, you know what, I feel I need more time. I don't think I can do it by March. I think maybe I need till July. Or, you know what, maybe I don't think that's enough money for a car. I really think that, it's good, $7,000 is what we need. So it needs to be adjusted. It's going to take me, we're going to need more money. So I can put $150 a month aside. Do you see what I'm getting at? But you have to be, at least starting off, you have to have that confidence level. But by putting all of these amounts in there, that gives you that ability to change it so that you can change that goal. Does that make sense? Okay. Somewhere. Maybe. Oh, this is really terrible. I apologize. So the next one just says priority. So only you know what your priorities are, okay? Someone else can't tell you what your priorities are. So you have to determine what is more important for you. And you're gonna have to make choices. So when it comes to budgeting, some things are gonna bubble up to the top. And guess what? They're gonna be different at different times. And everybody in here is a different age. So you're all at different points in your life cycle. So if you have little kids, guess what? Little kid things are gonna be more important. You got kids going off to college, paying for college sometimes is more important. And if you're getting ready to retire, you're probably really buckling down on saving for retirement. Different points in your life, you're saving for different things. So your priorities change. If someone gets sick in your house, then you're probably paying medical bills. Things change. It's just very different at different times. And that's okay. So just know that that's going to change kind of as you cycle, and there's no right or wrong as it goes through. I hope this gets, oh, hey, it did pop up. Okay. Oh, this is just yucky. Okay, so the next one is trying to get the most out of your income. So the idea is you really just want to maximize what that income is. And a lot of times when I say to people, what's your income? They'll go, well, this is my job. And I'll go, but what's your income? This is my job. what else is there, okay? There's a lot of other things that, kind of go into it. So think through your whole life and what are, other things that kind of can go into it. And really maximize that, and it kind of goes into a whole thing. So a lot of times we're not thinking about other benefits that are there. We're not thinking about taxes, okay? Use your taxes and, what your withholdings are to your best benefit. So a lot of times some people try to get the most out of a return at the end of the year, but sometimes it really would behoove you to get the most throughout the year and get more out of your paycheck. So really think about how you set that up and get the most, that you can. So, have somebody look at that with you, and to make sure that you're doing it what's right for you so that you get the most at the right time. And it might not be the same. So you might have started off when you were first started your job in your 20s, and it was best to get a really great tax return, at the end of the year. But now you could use more throughout the year. So it might be better off to change, what you have in your withholdings. So, it might best to have somebody look at some of that with you. And then what else do you have as assets? Okay. The next one is looking at our spending. So, I don't know if any of you have been to our stuff before. This is not a new tool. I actually have been using these for about 20 years. In Marshfield, I'll send these over to you guys. This is called, again, it's not new, it's very old, but it's actually one of the most impactful things that I use. It's a calculator. So the idea is if we take something very simple, so this, we're not gonna watch the video just because of time today, but in this video, she talks about her addiction to Diet Coke and how much she spends every day on Diet Coke. And that just this impact that it's had on her life financially. And you don't think about how much can go from a soda really can have this financial impact. And this will actually help you think about that. So we're gonna start on side one. Don't look at the prices on the bottom because that is outdated, but the calculator still works. So can someone tell me if we went to a gas station to buy a soda, what would it be? $2. Okay? So on side one, if we put $2 in the first side, so if we got a soda a day, it's how much per year? $730 a year from a soda a day. Okay? Can we use $730? Okay, now flip that baby over. On the back it tells you in 5 years it's $3,652, 10 years $7,304, and in 20 years just under $15,000. Now, can you think of something else to do with $15,000? No one? Yeah, okay, so we're talking about long-term goals. Would 15,000 in 20 years come in handy? Yes, right? Okay. Now let's come up with something else. Coffee. Any coffee drinkers? Anybody go to a coffee shop, get coffee? Gas station? No one? No, we're all frugal. What else do you do? Give me something. Nobody eats out?
Fast food lunch,
How much?
$4 to $6.
Okay. So if we did $4, again, not that we do it every day, but if we did, it'd be $1,460 in a year. If you flip it over, in 5 years, $7,304. In 10 years, $14,608. And in 20 years, just under $30,000.
That's every day, right?
Yep. So the idea is that I really don't want you necessarily to say don't do these things, but think about how you can do them differently and go back and think about what do you do, and is there some place. So a lot of times when we think about looking for other places and sources of income in our budgets, really think about are there other ways we could do it? So if you did drink soda, not that we want you to, but could you bring a 12-pack and could you put it under your desk? Or even water, instead of buying it from the drinking fountain, can you carry a thing with you? Or if it's sparkling water, bring a 12-pack with you and keep it under your desk. Things like that. So you're going to get it at a much more reasonable price. That kind of thing. So just kind of think that through. When I was in Marathon County, the funny thing was we did this so much in the office building that they took all our vending machines away because no one used them anymore. literally, they took all 3 vending machines away because they just everybody ended up bringing their own stuff. Because it was just much more economical. The vending companies weren't happy with us, but we ended up taking them all away. And the idea is, it just doesn't make a difference what it is. There's always a way that you can be just a little more frugal with it. My story, one of the stories I use often, also a colleague that I worked with in Marathon County, when we first had budget cuts a couple years ago, knew that the benefits were changing and that she was going to have to tighten her budget a little bit. And she didn't go for a fun coffee every day, but one of the things she treated herself to was a mocha from McDonald's. And so she thought she was cheaper at McDonald's than, say, one of the fancy coffee places, but it was still, a couple dollars, $2 to $3 every day. And so she knew that that was going to have to come out of her budget, but she still wanted her coffee. And so for that Christmas, she ended up asking her husband for a Keurig. And before you go, oh, that's still really expensive, listen to what the lady did. So she brought it into the office, and then she ended up buying them in bulk in quantity of 300 on Amazon. So she got them down to 20 cents a pod. And then so every morning, then she also put a refrigerator in her office. Not that I'm condoning this, but put a refrigerator in her office. And so she brought in her skim milk, and every morning she came to work early so she could have alone time away from her children. We talk about making yourself feel better. And she would make her mocha. She would swirl the inside of her cup with her chocolate syrup. She'd put her milk in. She would put her 2 mocha pods, and she got it down to 52 cents. And she went from $2 to $3 a day to 52 cents. She still had her own time. She sat there by herself every morning. She was able to calm, have her peaceful thing, and she went from $2 to less than 55 cents a day. So the idea is that there are ways around it. There are things that you can do. So think about what you do, and is there a way that you can do it differently? And there are, and everybody does something. It could be hobbies. It could be your kids. It could be things that your kids do. It could be how you travel. I mean, there are lots of things. So it doesn't have to just be food related, but think about what do you do, and are there different ways that you could do it? Make sense? Okay. Oh, this is another yucky slide. Okay, so when we think about our expenses, I'm actually going to pass out the sample budget. So when we think about our expenses, usually we categorize them into fixed expenses and then discretionary expenses. And so, can someone tell me the difference between a fixed expense and a variable expense?
Rent versus gas.
Rent versus gas. Expand on that.
Your rent is usually fixed, and gas depends on the price of gas, so you could spend $20 or $40 depending on the price of gas.
True. What else? So fixed expenses have a tendency to stay the same, okay? They have a tendency to be needs, okay? And they have a tendency to be, as definition, fixed. They're really, really hard to change, okay? Variable, on the other hand, have a tendency to be things that, you want. They could be things that you could need or could not. They change. They might be the same every month. They might not. And they're things that could be easily changed. So let's say your mortgage payment or your rent, for example. You might decide, we sat down, we did your budget today, and let's say your mortgage payment is, $800 a month, and you're gonna go, oh, you know what? I just can't do this right now. I really want to save. I'm trying to save for retirement, and I really should be more in the 600 range. I think I'm going to go back to the bank and see if I can refinance and if I can get into a lower bracket. How long would it take you to do that? Even if it got approved, how long would it take?
A month or two.
Yeah, it would take a couple of months, right? But if I said to you today, could you go to the grocery store and start packing your own lunch and shop differently? Is that something that you could do immediately? You could. You could. So there are things So sometimes those fixed expenses, there are things that we do have control over, we can change them, but they take a long time in order to change. They're fixed. But the variable are ones that you have control over right away, you have the ability to change. So that's kind of where it goes. But then, the other thing is that you have to determine in your budget, what are the things that could go? So what are the things that you could do without? So is it, and it may or not be, and it's different for everybody. So is it the internet? Is it cable or satellite TV? Is it XM radio? Is it eating out? Is it, is it a hobby? Is it something like, I don't know what people do. Is it, do you quilt? Do you go to, races? Do you, whatever it is. But is it something that, times got tight and I had to cut that out, or if I'm trying to save more, well, this is what's going. But you have to determine what that is in order to make your goals. Make sense? Okay. Okay, so remember what I said in the beginning. You get out of it what you put into it. So you have to have all your materials ready. If you guess on this, it's not going to be accurate. So you have to have all the information, and it has to be accurate. So that's where, when we get into a minute of trying to determine what, when we talk about tracking your spending, that's going to help you. So generally what we say to people is, take a stab at first. Go ahead, put in the information that you think it is right now, and then what we'll do is then we'll have you track your spending, and then you come back, and then you can, over the course of anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, then you can actually put in the real numbers and make changes to it so that it's accurate. Okay, so I did pass out, and this is very short. You might go, well, this is not going to help me. This is really short. The reason I start off with this just very simple one is just to kind of show you the categories so you can see what it is. I have everybody's email and over in Marshfield too, and I will, tomorrow we'll send you a more lengthy one with much more categories, and I'll also send you the links to some electronic ones. So we have some apps and there's some other digital ones, but I'll give you a digital copy, so if you want to do it on the computer, you can too. One of the things I will say is that what we know about adult learning is that we do recommend that you write it on a piece of paper the first time you do it, because what we know about adult learning is there's something about see it, think it, write it, own it, okay? And in our day and age of technology, somehow if something is just typed up and it's out on the computer, we're not owning it. It's not ours, okay? So what we know about adult learning is that if we physically write it out, we're owning it, okay? So it may seem a little, like, oh, that's old school, I'm not gonna do that. We do. We recommend, at least for your first budget, that you print it out and you hand write it out the first time you do it. And then after that, if you want to type it up, and that's why I'm going to send you both, you want to put it into the computer and then keep it going in the computer, that's fantastic. But we do recommend the first time you do it that you write it out, because then you take ownership of it. Make sense? Okay. Okay. And like I said, I'll send you some of these and we'll kind of talk about it. So, oh, jeepers creepers, yucky. The idea of where are you now and kind of where are you starting. So what are your resources? What's your income? What do you have? What's your situation? And then again, remember what we said. What are your goals? Where do you want to be? So that's really, really important. And again, don't leave anything out, because it is what you make of it. So it has to be accurate. So if you don't know something, like I said, you could possibly guess if you want to. I recommend people put those in parentheses or put them in a different color so that when you do track your spending, you can come back. So like if someone doesn't know exactly what their grocery bill is, I say put those in parentheses and then come back. And so for the next 2 weeks, keep your grocery receipts, and then you can come back with the exact total so you can put those numbers in. Make sense? And if, as you have those, as you come across and you're filling this out and you're like, oh, I don't know, then have a little piece of paper on the side that you're writing short-term goals, and your short-term goals are going to be things you're going to do in the next 2 weeks, and you're going to write, keep grocery receipts, and that's going to be number one goal, keep grocery receipts, so that you can track your grocery receipts, so that you know what it is. Or, if you don't know what your insurance is, it's going to be, get insurance. So that just things that you can figure out what it is. With me? Make sense? Okay. I apologize if this is yucky. Income. So remember I said sometimes when I ask someone what their income is, they say, oh, this is my job. Well, there's other things that kind of come into it. So really think about not only what are your wages, but do you have any extra tips or bonuses? Is there interest? Do you get child support? Does anybody collect on Social Security? Do you have any student loans? Is there anything else that is coming in? Do you have, sometimes people have inheritance or other money that's there, things that are coming off of, that they're living off of. So think of all sources of income. One that might seem strange to us, but actually I've heard many, many times over the years, is that it's hard to quantify on here on a budget, but it does make a big difference, is sometimes there's like a bartering system. So, I do blank for someone and I get free gas, or I shovel the snow and I get to do blank. Somehow that needs to be quantified, because if it's taking the place of an actual thing, a line item on your budget, so think about that. And so if it is taking the place of something, you might have to put in a qualifier for it. So think about that too. So that's one of those ones that I do get sometimes, because we do have that actually more often than we probably think of. A lot of people are using kind of that old-fashioned bartering system. I'll do this for you if you do this for me kind of thing. So that does happen. Oh, gosh darn it. So this slide just talks about other things that are out there. So do your kids get, free and reduced lunch at school, or other community services that are out there, assistance programs, things like that. So just kind of think about what's out there. Do you have your own garden? Do you hunt? And so you have a freezer full of venison, things like that. So if you're coming along, the fall harvest, and you know that you're gonna, have a full freezer of meat, that's going to make a big difference on your budget, because you're not going to be, having